It started innocently enough, just a few late-night YouTube videos about the deep web. You know, the ones with ominous thumbnails and clickbait titles like, "You won't believe what's hidden on the deep web." I laughed at how ridiculous it all seemed, but as I clicked through video after video, something shifted in me. The mystery, the hidden corners of the internet where anything could be lurking. It was like a door had cracked open in my mind, and I couldn't resist peeking inside. I spent hours diving into forums, reading accounts from people who claimed to have seen things that defied explanation. Each story was a new piece of the puzzle, and with every piece, my curiosity deepened. It wasn't just a casual interest anymore. It became an itch I couldn't scratch, a gnawing need to see for myself what lay beneath the surface of the internet we all know. I told myself I was just doing research, that I wasn't like those people who got in over their heads. But deep down, I knew better. The warnings were everywhere. Stay away. Don't go digging where you don't belong. But those warnings only fueled my obsession. If they were trying so hard to keep people out, there had to be something worth seeing on the other side. One night, after another marathon of reading and watching, I made the decision. My heart raced as I downloaded the Tor browser, my fingers trembling slightly as I installed it. This was it. I was crossing a line, stepping into a world where the rules were different, where the familiar comforts of the internet I knew didn't apply. As the browser finished installing, I felt a rush of adrenaline mixed with a sickening sense of dread. I hesitated, my cursor hovering over the icon on my desktop. What if the warnings were right? What if I was about to open a door that couldn't be closed? But I had come too far to turn back now. I clicked, and the screen flickered as the Tor browser opened, a window into the unknown. The familiar search bars and social media feeds were gone, replaced by a stark, empty interface that felt cold, alien. The thrill of the unknown surged through me, but it was tainted by an undercurrent of fear. A fear that I was about to find out exactly why some things are better left hidden. I had been exploring the deep web for days, maybe even weeks. Time seemed to blur as I ventured deeper into its shadowy recesses. I started with the typical curiosities. Forums filled with conspiracy theories. Black markets offering things I never imagined could be bought or sold. But the more I saw, the more I wanted. It was like falling down a rabbit hole. Only there was no wonderland at the bottom. Just darkness. One night, as I clicked through endless links, I found something different. It was a chat room, but it had no name, no description, just a simple URL that led to a blank screen with a list of usernames. It was strangely unsettling, like I had stumbled into a place where I wasn't supposed to be. Most of the usernames were grayed out, inactive for who knows how long. But one username caught my eye. It was in bold, standing out against the sea of gray, a single active user. I stared at it for a moment, feeling a chill creep up my spine. The username was odd, almost like a random string of characters, but something about it felt deliberate, like it was meant to be noticed. It was the only active presence in the entire room, yet it did nothing. No messages, no interactions, just there, watching. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as I debated whether to send a message. I told myself it was just a person like me, someone curious, exploring the unknown. But in the pit of my stomach, I felt a gnawing sense of unease. Why was this person here? And why weren't they doing anything? Curiosity got the better of me, as it always did. I typed a simple message, "Hello." My heart pounded as I hit enter, the sound of the keystroke echoing in my mind like a gunshot. I stared at the screen, waiting for a response that might never come. For a few long minutes, nothing happened. Just the silent, blank screen and that single bold username, staring back at me. I was about to close the window, chalking it up to another dead end, when the cursor blinked. My breath caught in my throat as the chat window slowly populated with a message, each letter appearing one by one, as if someone were deliberately taking their time. "You've been noticed." That was it. No introduction, no explanation, just those 3 words. My blood ran cold as I read them over and over. It felt like a warning, like someone, or something, had been watching me this whole time, waiting for me to make the first move. And now that I had, there was no going back. I wanted to respond, to demand answers, but my hands were frozen. paralyzed by a fear I hadn't felt since I first opened the Tor browser. Who was this person? How had they noticed me? And, most terrifying of all, what did they intend to do now that they had? I closed the chat window in a panic, my heart racing, but the damage was done. I had crossed a line, and deep down, I knew that whatever I had just encountered wasn't going to let me walk away so easily. After that night, nothing felt the same. I tried to brush off the encounter, convincing myself it was just some sick prank or a glitch in the system. But something inside me had shifted, a gnawing paranoia that clung to me, a sense that I was being watched, even when I was alone. The first signs were subtle, almost easy to dismiss. My computer, usually reliable, started acting up in ways I couldn't explain. It would shut down on its own, sometimes right in the middle of something important. I'd be working on a project, and suddenly, the screen would go black, leaving me staring at my own distorted reflection. At first, I thought it was a virus, something I'd picked up from my reckless browsing. But then, things got stranger. Files I knew I hadn't touched in months started to disappear, only to reappear later with their names changed. Cryptic strings of numbers and letters that meant nothing to me. I'd open a document, expecting to see my work, but instead, I'd find random symbols, like someone had overwritten my files with gibberish. I tried to recover them, but it was no use. It was as if my own computer was turning against me. Then the emails started. At first, they were just empty messages, no subject, no content, just a blank email from an anonymous sender. But soon, they escalated. I began receiving emails filled with information about me, details that no one should know. They listed my address, the names of my family members, even things about my childhood that I hadn't told anyone. The messages were always short, direct, and terrifyingly specific. One email simply read, "You shouldn't have looked." Another said, "We know where you live." I could feel my heart pounding every time I opened my inbox, but I couldn't stop myself. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion. I didn't want to see it, but I couldn't turn away. The worst part was that it didn't stop at my computer. The phenomena began to bleed into my physical world, blurring the lines between my digital paranoia and reality. I started hearing things, soft, barely audible whispers that seemed to come from my laptop, even when it was turned off. I'd be lying in bed, trying to convince myself that I was imagining it, and then I'd hear it. A faint voice, just on the edge of perception, murmuring words I couldn't quite make out. The shadows in my room seemed to take on a life of their own, moving in ways that didn't match the light. I'd catch them out of the corner of my eye, dark figures flickering in the periphery, always gone when I turned to look directly at them. At first, I thought it was just my mind playing tricks on me, but the more I tried to ignore it, the more insistent it became. It was like the darkness itself had taken on a presence, creeping closer, tightening its grip around me. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind outside felt like something more, like someone or something was lurking just out of sight, waiting for the right moment to make itself known. I tried to tell myself it was all in my head, that I was letting my fears get the best of me. But deep down, I knew the truth. Whatever I had disturbed in that nameless chat room, whatever had noticed me, was no longer confined to the screen. It was here in my home, watching, waiting, and it wasn't going to stop until it had what it wanted. The paranoia crept in slowly, like a shadow that stretched across my mind, growing longer and darker with each passing day. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that every move I made was under someone else's scrutiny. It wasn't just the emails, the strange behavior of my computer, or the whispers I heard at night. It was something more, something I couldn't quite name but felt in every bone of my body. At first, it was just a vague unease, a prickling sensation on the back of my neck that made me glance over my shoulder more often than usual. But soon it escalated. I started to feel eyes on me, even when I was alone in my own home. It was as if the walls themselves were alive, hiding unseen observers behind every corner, every shadow. I began to notice things out of place, small things at first. A book that I was sure I had left on the coffee table would turn up on the kitchen counter. My keys, which I always hung by the door, would be on the opposite side of the room. At first, I tried to rationalize it. I was stressed, exhausted, not thinking clearly. But the more it happened, the less I could convince myself that it was just my imagination. One night, as I lay in bed, staring up at the ceiling, I heard it, the sound that shattered whatever fragile sense of security I had left. Soft footsteps, barely audible, padding down the hallway just outside my bedroom door. My heart froze, and I strained to listen, holding my breath as the steps grew louder, closer. I wanted to believe it was just the house settling, maybe a stray breeze moving something outside. But these were footsteps, deliberate, measured, like someone was taking their time, creeping closer with each step. I could feel the blood rushing in my ears, my pulse pounding as I lay there, paralyzed by fear. I forced myself to move, to sit up and face whatever was out there. The room was suffocatingly silent as I tiptoed to the door, every creak of the floorboards under my feet sounding like a gunshot in the dark. I reached the hallway and flicked on the light, expecting to see. I didn't even know what, but there was nothing. Just the empty hallway stretching out before me, as still and quiet as the grave. I should have been relieved, but the emptiness only made it worse. I knew what I had heard. I knew something had been there, something that vanished the moment I got too close. It was playing with me, toying with my fear, and it was working. As the days passed, my sense of reality began to fray. Every noise, every shadow seemed charged with malevolent intent. I started seeing things out of the corner of my eye, dark shapes flitting past, just beyond my vision, gone before I could turn to look. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, certain that someone was standing at the foot of my bed, only to find nothing but darkness staring back at me. I began double-checking every lock, every window, convinced that someone was trying to get in. I'd barricade myself in my room, leaving the lights on all night, but it didn't help. The feeling of being watched, of being hunted, never left. I was trapped in my own home, a prisoner of my own mind, spiraling deeper into a paranoia that I couldn't escape. I tried to tell myself it was just the stress, the fear playing tricks on me, but it didn't matter how much I tried to reason with myself. There was always that lingering doubt, that sickening certainty that something was there, lurking just out of sight, waiting for the moment when I'd finally let my guard down. I didn't know how much longer I could take it. The psychological torment was becoming unbearable. I started questioning everything. My memories, my sanity, even my own identity. What was real? What was just in my head? I didn't know anymore, and the worst part was, I didn't know if I ever would. Desperation had taken hold of me. Every attempt to shake off the terror that had gripped my life had failed. The unexplained phenomena, the constant feeling of being watched, the relentless paranoia. It was all too much. I couldn't live like this anymore, trapped in a nightmare that wouldn't end. I needed answers, and I knew where I had to go to find them. Returning to the deep web felt like walking into a tomb, the digital world around me as dark and suffocating as the fear that clung to my every thought. But this time, I wasn't just exploring out of curiosity. I was seeking something, anything, that could explain what had been happening to me. I needed to confront whatever had noticed me, whatever had slipped through the cracks and into my life. My hands trembled as I reopened the Tor browser, the same sickening blend of dread and determination knotting in my stomach. I navigated through the endless maze of links and hidden sites, my breath quickening with each click. I knew where I was going, though every fiber of my being screamed at me to turn back, to leave this place forever. But I couldn't, not until I found the truth. Finally, I arrived at the nameless chat room. The blank screen greeted me with its usual emptiness, the list of usernames appearing slowly, like ghosts materializing from the ether. My heart skipped a beat as I saw it, the username that had first noticed me, the one that had set all of this in motion. But something was wrong. The username wasn't just similar to mine, it was exactly the same. My breath caught in my throat as I stared at the screen, the implications crashing down on me like a wave of ice-cold water. How could this be? Was it some kind of glitch? A cruel joke? Or something much, much worse? My mind raced with possibilities, each one more terrifying than the last. I forced myself to type a message, my fingers clumsy and stiff as I tried to demand answers. But before I could even hit send, the cursor froze. My screen flickered and then, slowly, letters began to appear in the chat window, not from me but from whatever was on the other side. It's too late. We are already inside. The words seared themselves into my mind. A final, damning confirmation of my worst fears. My skin crawled as I realized what they meant, the full horror of it crashing down on me. This wasn't just about the digital world anymore. Whatever I had disturbed, whatever malevolent force had noticed me, it had breached the boundaries of cyberspace. It was here, in my home, in my life, in me. I stared at the screen, paralyzed with a terror so profound it felt like my heart would stop. My reflection stared back at me from the darkened monitor, but it didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt wrong, as if the person looking back at me wasn't entirely me, as if something else was behind those eyes, watching, waiting. I slammed the laptop shut, but it was no use. The damage was done. Whatever this was, it wasn't just in my computer, it was in my reality, infecting every corner of my existence. The walls of my apartment seemed to close in on me, the shadows lengthening, darkening, as if they were alive, feeding off my fear. I wanted to scream, to run, to do anything to escape, but I knew there was nowhere to go. It was too late. I had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, opened a door that couldn't be closed. My fate was no longer in my hands. As I sat there, suffocated by the silence, the whispers returned, louder this time, more insistent. They seemed to echo from the walls, from the darkness, from inside my own mind. And I knew, with a cold, sinking certainty, that they weren't going to stop. They were here to stay. My world had changed forever, and there was no going back. Whatever I had let in was here to stay, and it was just getting started. My life, my mind, my very soul. Nothing was safe anymore. I had unleashed something beyond comprehension, and now I would pay the price. In the end, all I could do was sit there, alone in the dark, waiting for whatever was coming next, knowing that whatever it was already inside.